Okay. So we have about like one more minute before we will start.
I think we're missing Forest and Ryland yet.
Right. That's the only two that I looked at that we didn't have.
Okay, the live stream's up and running.
Okay.
Is Max in here?
No.
We are live.
Well, it's 4:30 and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Dunn County Solid Waste meeting to order. And I think the roll call can be stated that just two members are not present. That'd be Ryland Ehrman and Forrest Johnson. So would somebody like to make the approval of the minutes for January 12th? A motion and a second?
Terry here, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of January 12th, 2021 as presented.
And Tim Lino will second it. Are there any discussions, additions to that, the minutes? If not, all in favor of the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. And just one thing I'd like to do before we go into the staff reports, I'd like to do take the number D1, A, and B. We'll do that last. It'd just be a little bit more convenient if we do the closed session at the end of the meeting. If there's no objection, we'll just do that last. Hearing no objections, Morgan, we'll go with your staff reports.
If we go down to D item 2, then transfer station public drop-off commercial building inspection. So the appraisal has been done, and then we're going to discuss that in closed session. That was done on February 10. The commercial building inspections are going to be done this Thursday, which is the 6th. No, I'm sorry, the 4th, March 4th. And that's Brian Wirt Inspection Agency going to do that. The commercial inspections will be an added tool that we'll all be able to use to assess an ultimate value to the property. The commercial inspections will cover things like HVAC, plumbing, electrical, general building conditions, structural deficiencies, that sort of thing. So that's going to be a value added function to your evaluation of the property. And we will have that report completed fairly soon after the inspection. So I think we'll review that, the commercial building inspections then at the April 6th meeting. Item D3, the 2020 clean sweep report that has been submitted for the materials that we were able to dispose of with utilization of the clean sweep grant last year. You'll notice in, I think, the first paragraph, I mentioned that it was kind of a crazy year for a whole multitude of reasons, and the report is kind of obviously atypical as well. In a normal year, you would not be able to request grant funds for labor outside of your event. The only labor you could report is for the time involved in the clean sweep alone. But I shot for the stars on this one, and I don't think they'll balk at it. Since we did not have a clean sweep in 2020, but we had some very strong diversion efforts at the transfer station that resulted in us removing a lot of hazardous material off the tipping floor. I put in a good amount of hours associated with those diversion processes and included that in the preparation work for the hazardous waste we were able to ship last year utilizing the grant. And those were the compressed tanks and cylinders that we get in, the propanes and the oxygen, the helium, the CO2s, the refrigerants, etc. The total cost of, if you include the labor that I put in, the amount of labor plus the actual cost of disposal for the tanks and cylinders alone, we were at $13,450.92. What you don't see in that report, and I indicated in there, is we've got about 1,000 pounds left of household hazardous waste that we were not able to ship last year. And this was principally due to our primary haz waste vendor, WRR. Their principal hazardous waste coordinator passed away, unfortunately, last year. And this individual, you know, knew that program like the back of his hand, handled every component of it, and he was the one that we worked with to talk about getting our material shipped in 2020. And when he passed, they did not have the administrative infrastructure behind him to get things done, and so WRR was unable to take our waste, our household hazardous waste that we accumulated through diversion last year. So unfortunately, that carries over into 2021, and you can only use clean sweep grant funds in the year that you accumulated the waste. So I'm just glad that we were able to use grant funding and apply for via the report, apply for those use of those grant funds for the compressed and pressurized tanks and cylinders that we did ship in 2020. Now I'm working with WRR. Like I said, they're way behind picking up the pieces since this gentleman passed. So I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks we can get them out there to pick up the haz waste. It's all been lab packed and classified. We did that last month, Mike and I. So it's all ready to be picked up. It's just WR's got to, you know, get enough people together in a truck and get out there and pick the stuff up. I
So
talked to Mike.
question, Morgan,
Yeah.
can we apply for like a 2021 grant money for hazardous waste?
No, we cannot, because we're not generating any waste this year.
Even, okay,
The funds you request must be utilized in the year that the waste is collected.
okay.
Yeah,
That's too bad.
that is too bad. Yeah, it was an unforeseen issue with WRR, and you know, the fact that they just didn't have enough people behind this individual to get things done as, you know, as if it were normal. So any questions on the clean sweep report?
Morgan, Ed here. One question. The program that the federal or the state come out with last summer about, I can't even remember the name of it, where each township and the county got money. Maybe Dave, you remember the name of that. I'm not quite sure. The town of Menominee got $56,000. Keith would know.
Yeah, that was the through the Federal CARES Act for routes to recovery. That was COVID related.
Can we use some of that money for this hazardous waste?
No.
No.
One, the timeframe's long expired. It had to be done by some point last fall.
And it really wouldn't apply either. I mean, I don't know how you'd make that validation to connect those two dots, you know.
Yeah.
They're pretty, Keith, I mean, the state evaluates each one of those requests, right? So.
But yeah, they were very specific. You had to tie it to our COVID response. And
Okay.
yeah, this would be a tough argument. Good thought. I mean, we've tried to apply that every which way possible, but.
Well, we were trying to figure out how to spend that money. We got so much money, we didn't know what to do. So we found out we could either, go to the sheriff's department, give some to the city of Menominee, and I don't know why they couldn't do some of that to Dunn County too. But like I said, the water's gone under the bridge already with it. So it's over with.
The total amount of the household hazardous waste grant, again, we did no agricultural, we couldn't claim any agricultural, we couldn't claim any small quantity generator waste because we didn't have an event. And because we didn't have an event and we captured everything through tipping floor diversion, we couldn't identify what is what. So everything that we got, I've classified as household hazardous waste. We have a $10,000 available grant through the clean sweep to cover those costs. So the total cost of the worksheet came out to $9,402.12. And our allowable grant is $10,000. I'm hopeful that we'll regain that through the grant. Now, again, they may balk at some of those labor numbers I put in there. Again, there's no harm in shooting for the stars, just to, to have it come in a little under. And I think everybody's clean sweep. I've talked to all the surrounding, my partners in the surrounding municipalities. Everybody canceled clean sweeps last year except for a couple. And for the ones who did hold clean sweeps, they were challenging, trying to maintain social distancing and in this, wacky world of COVID. So, and those that canceled are writing similar reports to what I did. They were able to, propose some reimbursements for some of the waste that they were able to move in 2020, despite not having an event. Any other questions on clean sweep?
Not on clean sweep, but is all the bins and that were purchases by the municipalities, they all been paid for?
Yes, as of yesterday, we had
Oh,
one municipality make their payment late, so but they
okay.
have all now been received.
So what do we have left in as far as equipment from the collection sites, like compactors or bins? What do we actually have left that we can sell?
We have a single compactor head unit, no receiver box. We sold all the extra receiver boxes. So we have that extra compactor head unit up in Ridgeland. And we've got, I believe, Mike, you're on the line, aren't you? I think we got 5 or 6 of the multi-compartmental boxes. Is that right, Mike? Is it 5 or 6?
I believe 4 of the blue and 1 of the green.
Okay, so 5 total then.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll have an office, an outhouse, a shed, and a dog kennel in Ridgeland. That's going to need to come out of there. And I did talk with the landowner. He's very happy with waiting, obviously, until spring, until we can get in there with some equipment and dismantle that equipment and return the site to its original condition. It'll be reverting back to that original landowner. So I'm creating a list. I'm working with facilities. I've created a list, and I continue to add to this list of everything that'll be going up for auction with the state. And in my discussions with Scott Nabafeld, it sounds like the state auctioneers, however that works, they determine the value ultimately, but we can set a base price for items for whatever we think that initial, the lowest bid price that we would accept. And then I guess the auctioneers handle the rest of that. So I think the only thing that may not be considered for auction, which will be, pending more discussion, is that loader. I know Highway is very interested in that loader for their uses, and they will for the skid steer. The forklift really has just residual value. There's a lot of mechanical features on the fork truck that need upgrading to really make it
Okay.
safely usable. But all of the other equipment that's not bolted down is gonna go to auction. And I think we'll have to make another determination on whether or not we want to auction off the balers or if we want those to go with the building.
Well, that's kind of have to wait and see a little bit, how all things turn out. So, but I'd like to welcome Ryland, that he's here now. And I was out there at the transfer station, I told you about 2 weeks ago, I think. And the outside, I know there was snow on the ground, but it looked like it was really pretty much all done, all picked up. Everything would look emptied and that and cleaned up. So I wonder, can we set maybe like May 1st as a date for the DNR to come in and inspect it? We got to set a date, pretty soon, or try to set a date so we don't let it just go on and on and on, that we were ready for the DNR to come out and make their final inspection. Is that out of line, May 1st?
Well, it's going to depend on the weather, because there's stuff under that snow that you don't see. In the fall, we did or right before the snow flew in, was it mid-November? I had a bunch of the attendants come in, and we did a pretty comprehensive cleaning of the wood lines, the cornfield across the way that received some blowing trash, and just, completely picked up the transportation site in preparation for the snowfall. Because once that happens, anything that's under the snow, we're not going to get to it for, another 4 or 5 months until the winter's gone. So depending on the weather, we might be able to make a May 1st, but that's also going to be, that's gonna be the DNR's call on when they want to do that inspection. So I'll be reaching out to Troy Gant-Sluckner here in the near future to talk about that, talk about a schedule. I'm hesitant to just, set a date right now, especially because we're not 100% sure when we're gonna have everything moved out of the transfer station and in a presentable condition for an inspection. You got to remember, it's just me and Mike at this point. So, and in addition to all the administrative stuff that's still going on, the regulatory reporting and all that I'm doing here, I'm pressing my time between the office and the transfer station helping Mike. And he's
I
staying
thought
real
there was
busy out
still,
there.
I thought there was still the baler operator was still working, but he's been
No,
let go.
we let him go. We only had him for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
Yep, I didn't want to keep him on after we had finished all of the baling operations.
Because I couldn't get inside because everything was locked up, but is there much stuff left inside the main building of the transfer station?
There's not a whole lot. We're about to ship the final load of electronics, and that'll just be a box truck volume. We won't do any more semi-trailers of that. And the reason that we waited for that is because we're finding that stuff was squirreled away in every corner of that facility for many years. So now that we're doing a thorough emptying of all of those buildings, we're finding stuff that we didn't even know was, hanging around, things thrown into corners and buckets and barrels. And Mike's been doing a real good job at finding all that. So we found electronics, we found sharps, we found batteries and things. The last commodities that are going to be leaving there in the next couple of weeks, are going to be the non-ferrous metals, which Mike and I are preparing right now. The batteries, which are going to need to be sorted, and there's a lot of batteries that need to be sorted. The electronics and the hazardous waste. And I think that's everything, right, Mike? I think that's it.
Yeah, we still have the aluminum in those boxes, the cat food cans and
That's part of that non-ferrous load. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Okay. Right.
Yep. And then after that, Mike and I'll switch entirely to cleanup mode. So I'm hoping that coincides with, the melting of all the snow, and then we just give it a really good thorough cleaning in there. I did get a quote for having the whole facility pressure washed. It needs a really good pressure washing, but it was an unbelievably high quote, $26,000.
Hmm.
Lord, I don't know how you validate that. So we have a pressure washer down there, but it just doesn't have enough firepower to hit those upper walls and that. So that might be another thing that maybe we just sell that as is without a thorough pressure washing. I'm not sure. Get
Any
the
other
dirt free with the
questions?
cost of the building.
Any other questions for Morgan right now?
Morgan, Terry here, just wondering on the storage of, like you said, the unbolted items and the list of things, where would that be available, like for people that are going to maybe be interested in the auction? Is there a plan where people could view that prior to the auction, or is it too early to talk about that?
No, there will be, and we'll be very communicative about that, Terry. Like I said, I don't know all of the ins and outs of how that auction system works, but I'll be working with Scott Nabafeld to get that going, and I'll give everybody plenty of notification on when that's going to be put up for auction. And there'll be a state website, I believe, that you go to, and you can view that material and view the asking prices, et cetera, et cetera. Beyond that, I don't have a whole lot of detail. I'll have to pick Scott's brain a little more.
Thank you.
But like you're saying, Morgan, the county would have first choice then?
Absolutely. So there is some applicable equipment. Obviously, we talked about the heavy mobile equipment for highway. They would have first dibs before
Okay.
we decide what's going to go for auction. Yeah.
And how would that price be set then?
Well, we'll have to look at depreciation and residual value. Keith will be involved in that. Keith, you might have some pointers on how we determine that.
Yes, well, if it's an interdepartmental transfer, the county controls that. So yeah, we would look at depreciation and things like that. For external, yeah, Morgan and I will have to look at that together with Scott Nabafeld if necessary, and do some rough market assessment. No different than what you did when you determined prices for the stuff that you sold last fall for the remote sites. So.
Steve, you're muted.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're muted, Steve.
Unmute.
There we
Okay,
There you go.
how about that?
There you go.
Would it make any sense to purchase applicable pressure washer and do it ourselves? I'll throw that out there. You don't have to answer.
Well, again, we're working on borrowed money, so purchasing anything new in that regard, I don't know. You know, would it be worthwhile to pressure wash the building to prep it for sale? I think once you see the appraisal numbers and that, you know, the as is appraisal of that, you may decide it would be worthwhile to do that or not. My suggestion is no.
Well,
I would let the new owner do that.
but you could ask the appraiser what it would be worth to have it cleaned. And then you could make a determination. You don't have to answer anything right now.
I don't know that an appraiser would stick his neck out in that regard, because that's really just a visual item, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, Ed here. I think you can rent one of those pressure washers too. Of course, along with that, you'd have to rent a scissor lift to go up to the top of the ceiling.
Yeah.
You, Morgan, or
It costs.
yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
My recommendation is that I don't believe pressure washing the facility is going to add enough value to make that effort worthwhile, but that's just.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, that's the question.
Happy to do it if you want me to, but.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions for Morgan? Do you have anything else, Morgan, or are you ready for closed session?
I'm ready to go into closed session. And I just want to announce for the viewers that may be watching this, that we will go into closed session. This live feed will terminate, and then a new live feed will be started for when we come out of closed session. Is that right, Krista?
Yep, once we stop this live stream, we will start a new one once we go back into session.
Okay, thank you. So for us to go into closed session, I'll need a motion and a second, and then we'll have a roll
I'll
call.
move. I'll move.
Steve
I'll
moved
second.
and Tim second. So now we'll take a roll call vote.
Okay.